Okay, we're going to look again at converting between degrees and radians to degrees. And if you look at this slide, each row represents equivalent expressions. I've got degrees on the left-hand side. I've got radians on the right-hand side. So this column is in degrees, this column is in radians, but each row is an equivalent measurement, okay? So let's talk about when you convert from degrees to radians. Remember, you multiply the degrees by pi over 180. So if I take this 135 and I multiply it by pi over 180, what I need to do next is I'm going to leave it in terms of pi, but I need to simplify my fraction. I've got 135 over 180. Okay, well, if I add 1 plus 3 plus 5, that's 9, so this number is divisible by 9. 1 plus 8 is 9, so that's divisible by 9. And then this ends in a 5 and that ends in a 0, so they're also both divisible by 5. So if they're both divisible by 9 and they're both divisible by 5, then they would both be divisible by 45. 135 divided by 45 is 3. 180 divided by 45 is 4, so it'd be 3 pi over 4 radians. Okay? If I look at my next example, I've got 150 degrees. So I'd take 150 degrees, multiply it by pi over 180. So obviously both of them are divisible by 10 because they end in 0. And next, they're also both going to be divisible by 3. So 5 plus 1 is 6. 8 plus 1 is 9. They're both divisible by 3. So it's going to end up being 5 over 6 pi. And that's what we have on the right-hand side. Okay, if I look at my next example, I've got 225 degrees. So I'm going to do 225 times pi over 180. Again, I see that they're both divisible by 9 and they're both divisible by 5. So then they're both divisible by 45. So this would end up being 225 divided by 45 is 5. 180 divided by 45 is 4. So 5 pi over 4 radians. Next problem, we've got 315 degrees. So I take the 315 times pi over 180. And again, both of those are going to be divisible by 45. So it's going to end up being 7 pi over 4 radians. Okay, so 180 degrees. I'm just going to do 180 times pi over 180. And as you see, the 180s just cancel out. So you're left with pi radians. Okay, and then finally, we've got 60 degrees. So I'm going to do 60 times pi over 180. Okay, both of those are divisible by 60. 60 goes into itself once, so you're just going to have the 1 pi or pi on top, and then it goes into 180 3 times. Okay, now when you're going back the other way, just remember this time you just multiply by the reciprocal. Instead of multiplying by pi over 180, you're going to multiply by 180 over pi. And then in every one of these, the pi is going to cancel out. 180 divided by 4 is 45. 3 times 45 is going to be 135 degrees. Okay, next problem, 5 pi over 6. You would multiply by 180 over pi again. And then obviously 180 divided by 6 is going to be 30. 30 times 5 is 150, so that's 150 degrees. Okay, equals 150 degrees. All right, 5 pi over 4, again, 180 over pi. Pi's cancel out. 180 divided by 4 is 45. 45 times 5 is 225. 225 degrees. 7 pi over 4, 180 over pi. 45 times 7 is going to give us 315 degrees. Then the next one, of course, you're just going to multiply by 180 over pi. The pi's cancel out, and you've got 180 degrees. And then finally, we've got pi over 3. You're going to multiply that by 180 over pi, and just divide 180 by 3. You get 60 degrees. All right, guys, it's that simple.